She was just living her life, going to work, laughing with friends, dreaming of a future she hoped for. But in one moment, everything she believed about safety and fairness shattered. Words, looks, actions, small at first, escalated into something she couldn't ignore. Fear settled in her chest, heavy and cold, and she realized the world around her wasn't just unkind. It was biased, built to break her before she even had a chance. What would you do if every step you took felt like walking into danger,
It's going to be
simply for
okay,
who
my
you
dear.
are? But this is
I'm here
only the
for
beginning
you.
of her story, and what happens next will reveal just how deep injustice can run. It was a bright morning, and Amara moved through her neighborhood like she always did, greeting neighbors, stopping at the corner cafe, laughing at a passing dog. She worked hard, saving for her little apartment, dreaming of a life full of freedom and respect. On the surface, everything seemed ordinary. Friends saw her smile. Strangers saw a young woman minding her own business. But beneath the calm, tension lurked, subtle glances, whispered comments, doors that closed a little too quickly. The world she thought she understood was shifting, and soon she would feel in ways she couldn't ignore. What would it take for someone like Amara to realize that danger didn't always come from strangers, but sometimes from the very society that promised fairness? Amara's days started to feel heavier, each step carrying a subtle weight she couldn't shake. At work, clients would glance at her with thinly veiled suspicion, asking unnecessary questions, questioning her competence in ways that made her blood boil. On the bus, she noticed stares that lingered too long, whispers that followed her down the aisle. Each moment chipped away at the sense of safety she had once taken for granted. One evening, returning from a friend's gathering, she felt it more sharply than ever. A group of men blocked the sidewalk, sneering as she passed. Their laughter was low, menacing, carrying an edge she couldn't ignore. She tried to walk faster, heart pounding, but one of them stepped closer. A voice, rough and deliberate, cut through the air. "Don't you belong somewhere else?" Fear, anger, and disbelief collided inside her. How could this happen here, in a place she thought was familiar? The next weeks brought a series of smaller attacks that felt like arrows aimed at her confidence. Friends hesitated to invite her places. Shopkeepers treated her with impatience, and messages arrived cruel and anonymous. The neighborhood she had loved now felt like a maze of unseen eyes and hidden judgments. Every door she opened seemed to whisper, "You don't belong here." And yet, amidst this storm, Amara refused to retreat completely. She reminded herself of her goals, her dreams, the life she was building. But each day, the tension grew sharper, the injustice louder, until she could no longer ignore it. Something had to give point one rainy evening. As Amara walked home, the world around her seemed heavier than ever. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that felt alive, watching her every move. Ahead, a group of men blocked the sidewalk again, faces obscured by hooded jackets, their murmurs sharp and deliberate. Her heart raced, every instinct screaming danger, yet she could not turn back. Not now, not after months of quiet suffering. One of them stepped forward, shoving her lightly at first, then harder. The words that followed cut deeper than any physical strike. "You don't belong here. You're not welcome." The fear in her chest was suffocating, yet beneath it, a spark ignited. Anger, resilience, the refusal to be broken. Every insult, every shove, every whispered threat of past months converged into this one moment. Amara's hands trembled, her mind raced. Should she run, fight, or stay frozen? And then, something inside her shifted. She lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "I do belong, and I will not let fear make me invisible." The words hung in a rain-soaked air like a declaration, a crack in the wall of injustice that surrounded her for so long. In that instant, the attackers faltered, the tension snapping like a taut wire. Passers-by began to notice. Whispers turned to stares, the world around her responding to the courage she had summoned. It wasn't an immediate victory. Racism did not vanish in a single confrontation, but the moment marked a turning point. For the first time, Amara felt her power, her voice, her presence undeniable. Amara finally reached her apartment that night, drenched, exhausted, yet strangely unbroken. The fear that had gripped her for months began to ease, replaced by a quiet strength she hadn't realized she possessed. She had faced the harshest moments of injustice, stared it in the eyes, and refused to be silenced. It didn't erase the prejudice she encountered, but it reshaped how she saw herself. Capable, resilient, and worthy of dignity. In the days that followed, her courage rippled outward. Friends, neighbors, even strangers began to speak up against the subtle and blatant injustices they had previously ignored. What once felt like isolated suffering now became a shared awakening. Amara's story reminded everyone that standing against bias, even in small acts, can spark change. Racism doesn't vanish overnight. It lurks in streets, workplaces, and whispers. But confronting it matters. Every act of courage, every refusal to accept injustice, chips away at the walls built to divide us. Amara's journey is a testament. Change begins when we refuse to let fear dictate our lives, and when hope outweighs despair. So, ask yourself, what would you do if the world tried to define your worth before you could speak? Will you let fear hold you down, or will you stand like Amara and claim the life you deserve? Because every act of courage, no matter how small, challenges the injustice that still exists around us.